Mr. Nigel Farage, President of the Europe of Freedom and Democracy.
When we had a president, we'd see a giant global political figure, the man that would be the political leader for 500 million people, the man that would represent all of us on the world stage, the man whose job was so important that of course you're paid more than President Obama. Well, I'm afraid what we got was you. And I'm sorry, but after that performance earlier that you gave, and I don't want to be rude, but you know, really, you have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous, and I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states. You appear to have a loathing for the very concept of the existence of nation states. Perhaps that's because you come from Belgium, which of course is pretty much a non-country. But since you took over, we've seen Greece reduced to nothing more than a protectorate. Sir, you have no legitimacy in this job at all, and I can say with confidence that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the British people in saying we don't know you, we don't want you, and the sooner you're put out to grass, the better.
Well, as you said, Mr. President, you wouldn't like to be rude, and I prefer to go ahead with this statement. Mr. President, blue card, if you could. Yeah.
Mr. Farage, would you agree we should apply Article 9 of the treaty? You can leave Europe by...
The floor is yours.
You may not like what I say, but just consider your behaviour. You, after the Irish people in a referendum voted no, said that our group had opened, by supporting the no vote, that we'd opened the door to fascism. You said that we had behaved as a group in the Parliament like Hitler and the Nazis in the Reichstag. We've been called by Danny Cohn-Bendit mentally weak. You know, it has to be, it can't be one way.
It is not personal statement. Mr. President Farage, it is not personal statement. I am very sorry, it was not personal statement.
That very soon, perhaps even within a year, the whole world is going to be rocked with the astounding announcement of a new super world government in Europe, perhaps even more powerful, perhaps even greater than either the Soviet Union or the United States. And it will trigger the feared, awesome nuclear World War III. And the prophecies of your Bible says that definitely it is coming.
The World Tomorrow. The Worldwide Church of God presents Herbert W. Armstrong, internationally recognized ambassador for world peace, visiting prominent leaders around the globe, discussing the cause of world problems, and proclaiming the good news of the world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Herbert W. Armstrong.
Now, I forecasted this resurrection of the medieval Holy Roman Empire, or a United States of Europe, up to almost 50 years ago. The very first issue of the Plain Truth magazine, which came out with the February issue of 1934, and at that time it was, well, it had the most humble beginning of any magazine that I know. Now, the Plain Truth today has grown to one of the great mass circulation magazines of the whole world, over 5.5 million copies monthly. But at that time, it had to start so humbly. A homemade magazine, you might say, just printed on a borrowed mimeograph, about 350 copies, the first issue. I want to show you now on the screen the front cover of that magazine almost 49 years ago. And the lead article is a world dictator about to appear. This is what it said almost 49 years ago. Will it be Mussolini, Stalin, or Roosevelt? Continuing, the Plain Truth said, everybody senses that something is wrong with the world, that some mighty event is about to occur. What is it? Bible prophecy tells. Here is a solemn warning, and it is the plain truth. We live today in the most strenuous, anxious, momentous hours of Earth's history. Today, as 49 years ago, we stand in the very threshold of colossal events that will stagger the mind of mortal man. Just now, it is like the lull before a great and devastating storm. Everyone senses it. The lust for world power. Ever since the pharaohs ruled in Egypt, on down through ancient Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, on to Napoleon, and then the Kaiser, there has been a lust for power to rule the world. It is commonly known today that Mussolini's whole aim is to restore the ancient Roman Empire in all its former splendor, power, and glory, and Rome did rule the world. Now let me add here that shortly after that, and back at that time, it was announced, it didn't even make front page news, but it was announced in newspapers, and I did announce it on radio at that time before the public, that Mussolini had conquered Ethiopia, that he added Eritrea, Italian Somaliland, and Italy, had made a concordat with the Vatican in Rome, and that he did announce that he had restored the Roman Empire. Now, continuing that issue of the Plain Truth 49 years ago, I said this: today, Prime Minister MacDonald of Great Britain and President Roosevelt are striving frantically to avert and to postpone the impending next World War. That was World War II. It had not yet come when I wrote that, but I'd been prophesying it was imminent that it would come. Continuing, while the nations prepare even more feverishly for war. 3 or 4 short years ago, many laughed and scoffed when I said that there would be another world war in 5 to 7 years. Actually, it did come in 1939, and I was writing this in 1934. It did come 5 years later. They do not laugh and scoff today. Everyone knows that the next world war is coming, and soon. Every move for peace has failed. Once again, I remind you that was written almost 49 years ago, back in 1934. The first issue of the Plain Truth magazine. The Plain Truth is still announcing events before they happen. The Plain Truth has always been many, many years before its time. It is a world news magazine that not only foretells what is going to happen according to Bible prophecy, but explains the world news and its meaning. Now, why the delay in this United States of Europe? It is a resurrection of the medieval Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire was started in the year of 554 after the fall of the major ancient Roman Empire, but at the behest of the Pope at Rome, Justinian, the ruler of the East in Constantinople, was brought to Rome, and he revived what they called the Roman Empire. But it became known as the Holy Roman Empire. And it lasted until after Napoleon in 1814 AD. Now, ever since, the nations in Europe have wanted to reunite, and I've been foretelling it. The Bible foretells it, just as I did foretell World War II. Now I'm foretelling World War III. People scoffed. They didn't believe it then. It happened. Some people may be scoffing today. It will happen, and you can bet your life on that, because you are betting your life on it. Now, why has it not come sooner? Why has it been so long? And I have known it was coming for almost 50 years now. Well, in Europe, they are divided by different language barriers. There's so many different languages. For example, there is German, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Greek, many different languages. They have various national aspirations that divide them, national patriotisms. Now, always in the so-called Holy Roman Empire, the Catholic Church was the sort of cementing agent that cemented the nations together and brought them together religiously, and Bible prophecy says will be once again. Even religion in Europe has been divided between the Roman Catholic Church in the West and the Eastern Orthodox Catholic Church in the East. They have been absolutely divided, and of course the major point is that the churches in the East, in every ecumenical movement tending toward trying to bring unification once again, they have said that they will not accept the Vatican or the Pope as the head over the Eastern Catholic religion. Well, I can tell you now, the day before I arrived in Athens, and I arrived there from South Africa. I'd been on in South Africa and also in Nairobi. And the day before I arrived there, there had been a meeting of the European Parliament. Now, the European Parliament is merely the political arm that is working for the political unification of Europe, or reunification. And it has no actual authority yet, but they're just working for it, and those that are working for it. One of the great motivating powers that are tending to bring them together now is fear of increased Soviet threats, especially since the death of Mr. Brezhnev and the ascension to the throne, you might say, in Moscow, of Mr. Andropov.